Okay, the recording has started. As we did a major part of rural settlements yesterday, we will slowly move to urban today. But before that, as I said yesterday, that the patterns look the same. It's only that the scale of urban settlements is so huge that you would not be able to easily identify the pattern. Secondly, the fact that uh, there are so many affecting factors in an urban area that you could have a mixture of patterns as a consequence. And with that, we will immediately start. I will start with presenting. I think we stopped at this. Can someone confirm that it was this thing that we were doing yesterday? Yeah, can someone please confirm that this was the last slide shown yesterday? Yes or no? Hello? Hello? People? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, why are you not able to unmute yourself? Is there an issue? Is there a problem in unmuting yourself? Okay, okay, okay. So you are getting me through. That was the main issue. Fine. I will then, in that case, continue with where we had stopped yesterday. And while we spoke about linear patterns and we spoke about square and chessboard patterns as such, we also spoke about circular and semicircular patterns of settlements. And today we'll move to the next set of patterns, and these are to start with a triangular pattern. Triangular pattern, obviously, you'll see that peninsular locations, you go to a peninsula, in the sense not that of India, but because that would be a very large scale. You'll see that you have a small island and you go towards the corner of that particular island, you would have a peninsular pattern. So, for example, yeah, I can now say that Mumbai, the southern part of Mumbai, which is a tapering thing, okay, the pattern which would have shown in only in the southern part of Mumbai is what I can say is a peninsular location. Then you'll see that if you have two rivers, or one major river and one minor river, and they meet each other, in the sense, okay, you have this one river coming this way and the other river is coming this way. Okay, you'll see that a triangular location will take place here, and obviously this is going to be called as a peninsular location because it looks like a peninsula surrounded by around three sides. And uh, then you'll see that there are two things. Next is a radial pattern and star pattern. Now, actually, you'll see that star pattern is something which is used in common language, and radial, I would say, is a geometric context of it. Either way, you'll see that both of them, causing of radial or star pattern, is to do with uh, and something which is of an importance. It could be uh, a place of social importance, a place of religious importance. As such, you'll see that normally you have um, and you'll see that radial or star patterns will have a lot of crisscross locations, in the sense you'll not have a radial location where you have a place of religious importance, but you have only one highway which is going through that particular location. In that case, okay, the highway will dominate the religious importance and place of religious importance, and the settlement will settle along the highway also. So that would not give exact. The you'll see that the place should be very very important. It could be the local deity, or it could be a very important temple, so on and so forth. So People from all it's literally like people from all directions want to flock to the center of that particular location, and that is why it has to be a place of religious importance and social importance. Social importance could be that this I would refer to the older periods in history, wherein I would say that you have a fort in the center, or you have the house of the headman at the center, and she could be very helping, and that's why and has a lot of name in that local area. So people from local and other areas would be coming to the center as such. Then you have arrow-shaped location. That's this one. As far as arrow-shaped locations are concerned, I would say that an arrow-shaped location is again very similar to a peninsular location, because it tends to be dead end places of dead end location. As similarly, you'll see that a fan shaped location is again something which is of a dead end type as such. Now, in that case, then what is the difference between a arrow and a fan shaped? You'll see that it could be that this is the main road. Sorry, this is the main road, and the place of importance, again it could be a minor really place of religious importance, is a bit at a distance from here. It's located here as such. So people would be initially, the locations would start here, and then you'll see that people start staying along. Now you could have a main road which is going this particular way. So the settlement grows, and then it comes to the main road, and then it starts spreading along the main road as such. So you'll see that this could be an extension, but that extension with the straight handle looks like a fan, and that is why it is called as a fan pattern type of location as such. Okay, as I said, you could have similar type of locations in uh, urban areas as well, but the problem being that the scale is so huge. Okay, you stand even at a higher point, it would be difficult for the normal human eye to catch the pattern of a particular region as such. Okay, so these are the major patterns, and then we come to the types of houses that you normally can see. I would give you a couple of moments to just go through these and try to imagine how it is related to the geography. Of course, all of these are related to the rural pattern and not the urban pattern. In urban areas, obviously, RCC type of constructions are going to dominate. Okay, you will not be able to. You'll see that a bungalow in Pune will be very similar to a bungalow could be similar to a bungalow in Nagpur, and in fact, I can give you say very potent example of how a common policy tends to influence a particular architecture throughout a geographical region, in spite of the diversity that that particular geographical region may have. Can anybody give me an example of that? That throughout India there is something which shows very similar. Yes, there are a few exceptions here and there, but 90% of these structures throughout India happen to be so very similar. Can anybody think of such architecture? I'll also at the same time take you through. I'll just enlarge each of them, and you'll see a clear picture. You can read through what is written at the bottom of each picture, and you could be in a position to identify. Yeah, coming back to my question, any architectural structure in India that you see is common throughout pan India. Yeah, not related to houses, of course. It's so very easy. You'll see that railway stations in India. You'll see that railway stations, except for a heritage railway station or a hill station railway station, you'll see that 90% of the railway stations look so very similar. Okay, you'll see that you take away the nameplate of that particular railway station and you put up 4 photographs. People would find it very difficult to differentiate between which of this particular railway station it is. It is so very common and so very it's so very modeled in a it's modeled in a so in a way wherein railway stations throughout India, as I said, look very similar. Of course, say a railway station like Ooty or Shimla would look a bit different, but then uh, in fact, again, I would say that there is a bit of similarity as far as
Sir,
the
am I audible?
hello, yeah, please, hello,
Hello, sir.
yeah, please go
Sir,
ahead.
maybe the last one.
Last one in the sense.
Uh, that last house is common in India, I guess.
I'm not referring to these houses. I was referring to some other thing. Otherwise, you'll see
No,
that
sir,
the basics,
you asked something.
basics. Yeah, I asked that a structure, not a house, a structure in India which is very similar all through pan India, and that is railway stations. You'll see that the
Oh,
style
okay,
in
yes.
which railway stations are built in India. Until recently, there is a major change, but then you'll see that majority of the railway stations, even today, look very similar. Is what I was referring to. Houses obviously are different, and I'm going to come to how and why they are different as such. We'll see that we'll start from this part, and I want you all to give me answer. You'll see that you have the first two are pillar based. Now, what exactly is the reason that you need to have pillar based house in northeastern part of India or Assam? Anybody has an answer to this? Pillar based. They are
Can I,
stilted.
sir?
They are.
May I,
Yes,
sir?
yes, please. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Oh, sir, in north part of India, so because they have means large amount of rainy season, and every year they face to flood.
Exactly. Yes, that's a very,
Yeah.
that's the exact reason that they stay at a height from the normal level. You'll see that in Assam, which is all along the banks of the Brahmaputra. The Brahmaputra has a higher discharge of water as compared to the Ganga, let me tell you. And as a consequence, you'll see that the Assam floodplains tend to be flooded. As a consequence, you'll see that the houses are built at a height. They have a base of various pillars as such. Normally, in rural areas, there would be bamboo shoots as such. Nowadays, in some areas, they do build concrete pillars as well. But normally, it is going to be concrete is obviously going to be costly. So something which is naturally available is bamboo. So they use these bamboo stocks to place it on pillars. But the moment you move into uh, plain areas as such, or areas which are beyond the scope of the floods, then you'll see that these houses come down. But what is common in all these is that the roofs are inclined. Okay, they are sloping. Okay, the reason remains the same, that it's very heavy rains, and that's why you'll have these houses as in that particular way. As such. From there, we come down to the central parts, and of course, the uh, eastern parts of UP. They look more or less the same, but the difference being that now the roofs are not thatched. The roofs are not thatched; they are tiled. You have tiled in these regions, and you'll see that in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, you could also have double storied. म्हणजे आपण मराठीमध्ये ज्याला पोटमाळा म्हणतो, तो पोटमाळा थोडासा वाढवलेला असतो. And that in English I would call it as a mezzanine floor. It's not an absolute tall floor as such, but then uh, say if the normal is 9 to 10 feet as such, this could be around 6 feet only. Means you go upstairs, and normally you have a wooden ladder to climb up to that. You would have use it as a storage thing, and then if the basement or the main place is buzzing with people, then the women would go to this particular area to have a short afternoon nap to this in these areas as such. So this is double-storied houses, and you'll see that you'll find them in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh as such. Not exclusively, but then this is the pattern they have shown as such. Okay. Then you'll see that as far as the say eastern part of the Gangetic Plain is concerned, that's Bundelkhand and how Bihar and eastern UP is concerned, you'll see that they are tiled, and possibly because of the expanse of the area, they are relatively larger, I would say, as compared to the houses in Maharashtra, Eastern and Eastern UP. The size of the family also could be a matter. Here you'll see that the sizes of families in Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra would be relatively smaller, so smaller houses, and and the topography being a bit rigid, they would be building it in story fashion as such. Okay, story in the sense STOREY. Okay, uh, and as far as Bundelkhand or Bihar, etc., is concerned, the plains give them scope to build houses which are large, and is obviously, as I've already said, that the family size would also matter. Then we come to houses of Doon and the Bhabar areas as such. The Doons and Bhabar areas are areas wherein you'll see that the Himalayan rivers come down from the Shivalik. Are basically the smallest of the mountain ranges of the three ranges of the Himalayas, and you'll see that water rushes out from there, and then it comes to the plain. As a consequence, there is a lot of deposition of silt, and in many areas, then the water runs beneath the surface. Such areas and the deposits are coarse, etc., etc. So such areas are dune is basically the base of a valley. Also, you could say so. In such areas, rural locations are such. You'll see that it's compounded here. The roofs are thatched again as such. Okay. Then, interestingly, you'll see that Himalayan regions, Kumaon regions, you'll see that they are built with stone blocks. The houses are built with stone blocks as such, basically because such temporary, or I would say such type of apartments that you can see, or dwellings, I won't call them apartments as such dwellings that you would see towards the left side of your screen would freeze the people living in it, particularly during the winter. So you'll see that it's not only multi-storied, you'll see that you have the basement, and then you have the first floor and second floor. Those who have been to uh, these hill stations like Sikkim, etc. They have a very weird way of counting their floors. Also, you'll see that it so happens that you enter in many cases in Darjeeling. You'll see this, that you enter the hotel and at the top floor, and then you have sub floors and sub stories as such, and of course the other side is looking into the valley region, etc., as such. So in fact, the top floor in that case is ground floor, and then you have floor number one, that's -1 and -2, and so on and so forth. Those who have experienced this in Darjeeling and Sikkim will realize that. I don't remember whether such systems are there in the Kumaon regions. Kumaon regions is basically the western part of Himalaya, Uttarakhand, and Himachal Pradesh, Shimla, etc. as such. Uh, Going to the houses in western part of UP, the moment the rain comes down, you'll see that the tops of houses go flat as such. That's one thing. And then you'll have a place where people would come out and sit for some time, because it's going to be hot during the summers as well. So a small thatch, and then behind that you're going to have a squarish thing. Okay. And then you come down to Gujarat, you'll see that as compared to other areas, now this is not hard and fast. I have my reservations about this thatched house in Gujarat. but it's more of a conical in shape rather than rectangular and squarish houses that you find in other parts. Uh, Similar thatched houses in Orissa as such. So in most cases, you'll see that rural India has been in blend with the nature in many cases. That's so very obvious as such. And then you have this peculiar impact of Christianity as far as the Portugal impact in Goa is concerned as such. The heavy rains keep it conical as such. Then you'll see that it's built at a bit of a high level as compared to the other dwellings we have seen. You have to walk up steps is something again, and then because of the rain again in Goa, you'll see that say at the doors, main door and other doors as such, and you can also observe that as far as the windows also are concerned. Sorry. Uh, just come out of it. The windows are concerned, the door and the windows, you'll see that they're thatched so that the rainwater doesn't pour into the houses. And then you have these very peculiar houses of Kerala, I would say. Okay, you'll see that this part, oh, we have to come out of it. This part is significantly tall as far as it's very similar to a mezzanine floor in uh, Maharashtra as such, and you'll have a break in the architecture here. You see that this is different here and this is different here, which obviously is not seen in Maharashtra as such. Once again, the heavy rains keep the top of these houses inclined as such. So that's about uh, the type of houses in India. Then let us move to the urban areas as such. We normally call them as cities as such. A city would have an abundant services, but not as large as a large city. The population of a city is around 1 lakh. A city is an urban area with large population and particularly administrative, legal, historical places. I would also say that uh, there is a limitation as far as population involved in agricultural activities as far as cities are concerned. A very small percent of agriculture. Now you would say that why even that small percent? You'll see that towards the fringe areas we spoke about yesterday, they practice what is called as market gardening. Market gardening is cultivation of uh, fruits and vegetables and flowers, etc. Because they fetch a high value in city areas as such. So that's a very small percent, however. In Pune, you'll see that you start moving even 10 kilometers from the main limits of Pune. You'll see that you go on the Solapur road, you have these nurseries. You may not have market gardening, but you have these nurseries which are there, and they will sell you various types of ornamental plants, etc., etc. Similar thing happens when you start moving towards Bangalore. Also, you move towards Nashik. You'll see that, of course, it's not exactly along the Nashik highway because in for the last few years we have been constructing concrete roads connecting all major cities. So you have to move a bit into the interiors, and you'll see that vegetable cultivation, uh, um, flower cultivation is practiced in a bit of interior areas as such. So that's uh, the characteristic feature around Pune. It's seen as a characteristic amongst around major towns, cities as such. Not around Mumbai. Mumbai is a very interesting thing. I don't know how many of you all have been to Mumbai. You'll see that it's not on the outskirts of Mumbai, but because railways occupy a huge area in Mumbai. When I was in Mumbai till around 2010, they used to cultivate these uh, leafy vegetables along the tracks of Mumbai. I used to hate it basically because the water supplied to it used to be sewage water, and this was very unhygienic as such. But I don't know how government authorities allowed that. That it was a very unique thing that I saw, not seen in other parts of India. Uh, Urban areas, majority of the people are are engaged in non-rural activities, primarily being hunting, fishing, and you would say lumbering also, and of course agriculture as such. They work in offices, shops, factories, operate machinery, provide healthcare and other services as such. Urban area settlements could be small, like 1,000 people, but can be as large as the Tokyo Yokohama conurbation, which has in Japan, which has over 30 million people. 30 million means 3 crores. Of course, this Tokyo is the largest city in the world, by the way, and I think this 30 million is an underestimation. I think it's beyond 3.5 million and approaching. As far as my information goes, it's around 4 million. That's 4 crores of population. Okay, okay, let's move ahead. What the characteristics of an urban settlement? It's in the form of a town or a city. They're large, both in population and area. Okay. Then, just as I said that in earlier slide, functions are business, manufacturing, governmental activities, cultural centers, etc. And there is a variety of services that tend to be offered. You'll see that of late, particularly, I can immediately let you know is about malls that you can see in urban areas. And I don't know how many of you who come from the rural areas do have done that, but you'll see that many people from the neighborhood rural areas actually come to the cities for the exclusive purpose of visiting and shopping of Pune, and this happens in other parts of the country, which have a sizable number of variation between rural and urban areas as such. So that's one thing. Then you'll see that for a city like Pune, something that is coming up, it's not operational, but something that is coming up is uh, an exclusive service would be the metro. Before the metro, the BRTS service that you find. Now, obviously, all these are an outcome of congestion of traffic, etc., etc. But eventually, they are presented in such a way that you find it to be very unique, and that's why you want to travel to that particular place and have an experience of traveling through the BRTS area and so on and so forth. Okay, and as I said the other day, that unlike rural settlements wherein particularly the elderly people would be knowing major of the names of the people in the rural settlement. Here in urban areas, you'll see that neighborhood is separate. Everybody is minding their own business. There is limited knowledge about others as such. Among the various problems, I would say traffic and pollution problem, pollution of various aspects, noise pollution, water pollution, land pollution, problem of waste disposal. You'll see that those who follow local politics and local news, I would say that till recently and even these days, you'll see that disposal of waste has been a very sensitive issue as far as the Pune Municipal Corporation as well as the Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation is concerned. This is how an urban settlement looks like. Majority of the settlements in the developing countries would look like this. You'll see that in the background, you have what is called and the central business districts, wherein say posh areas, the posh areas, major offices, very tall buildings, etc., would be there, and there could be some pockets wherein you have slums and ghettos, as they're called in the US, as such. Now, just in case I had removed this name Manila, Philippines from here, and I would have said that this is Mumbai, many of us would have agreed to the fact as such, because Mumbai also looks very similar. It has a lot of slum areas. At the same time, you have a lot of tall buildings as such. Believe me, this was not a scenario as far as Pune is concerned some 40 years ago. When I was small, okay, let me give you an example. Around 8th standard or 9th standard, I had we had a poem in Hindi textbook wherein a hutmate is actually speaking to a skyscraper, And I for years used to imagine how can there be a hut just next to a skyscraper. Skyscrapers need to be exclusive, slums need to be exclusive, because the scenario in Pune was very similar of what I was thinking about. In the sense, slums were exclusive in a particular area, and the commercial area of Pune, the residential area of Pune, did not have this. But nowadays, you'll have these small shanties here and there. And it was only after a few years when I visited Mumbai that I found that at the basement itself, you could have small shanties which provide basic services like ironing of clothes and say a small substances like selling of bread, etc. at the base as such. That was very weird when I was small, but then I see that this has become a very common thing. Okay, you'll see that obviously everybody would recognize that the photo towards the right of your screen is that of Marine Drive, Mumbai. The southern end, I would say. Uh, if I'm not wrong, uh, the building which is a bit across is the Air India building, and the buildings following that is rather the taller building is the Oberoi Hotel, and interestingly, not a point I should be discussing here, but interestingly, there is a reason why the Air India building is built that way. If you can just see carefully behind the Air India building, you have another building which is equally tall as such, and those who have been to this area will know that this is in the Indian Express building. Now, what is the story between these two buildings? 1977, when we had emergency, uh, Goenka, who was supposed to be leading the Indian Express newspapers group, he used to write against the government a lot through the Indian Express. And as a consequence, I don't know whether this is a myth or a truth, but then there is a logic to this, because the way in which they have built the Indian Express, the Air India building, it's very confusing. And as a consequence, it is believed that the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was not happy with the Indian Express groups thought of building this. This now, what is the advantage of? Now, why did they build this as such? You'll see that the Indian Express building, okay, you go to Malabar Hill all the way to Marine Drive. It has been built in such a way that unless and until you come to the ground floor of the Indian Express building, you are not able to see the building. That's a very interesting story about it. But then when I was in Mumbai, I did try this, and yes, it cannot be seen. And that's why the Air India building it's been made attractive. You see that the outer thing is all marble. It's more attractive than the Indian Express building. And it is built so across that you hardly can see the other building, the building behind it, that's the Indian Express. Anyway, that's not a part of our study as such. But you'll see that mid-level towns in northern parts of India have more of this particular type of arrangements. You'll see that houses which are 2, 3, at the most 4 story, they don't go beyond that as such. Very narrow ones as such. Okay, this is a very common picture as far as North Indian areas are concerned. As small patches, this is based on, I would say, just like fragmentation of farmlands. You'll see that fragmentation of residential places. The father passes on the plot to two brothers, who would then split them amongst themselves, and then of course it starts growing vertically over the period of time. You'll see that you have many narrow buildings. You have a narrow building, you can see one here, you can see another one here as such. Okay, and otherwise you'll see that these are even the other ones are significantly narrow also as such. So that's another pattern that we would see in a developing country like India as such. What is the difference between the services of rural and urban settlements as such? You'll see that health-wise, you'll have a medical clinic, and that also is going to be government sponsored as such. In urban areas, You would have hospitals, larger, catering to 24-hour services and so on and so forth. You would have government hospitals, you would have private hospitals. Yes. At education level, you could have primary, at the most, you could have secondary, high secondary as such. The university is out of bounds as far as major rural areas are concerned. Even large colleges are going to be out of bounds in rural areas as such. For shopping purposes, you'll see general stores and markets, etc. I just said that urban areas are famous for shopping malls, etc. When it comes to financial things, okay, cooperatives and money lenders are the, the prime uh, components of finance in rural areas as such. In urban areas, of course, you'll have banks, nationalized, private, and for a place like Mumbai, you would have an international bank, the DBS and the Deutsche Bank, and I think I could give you a few more names. I can't think of many. Anyway, so since we're speaking about Mumbai, Mumbai will have an international airport. As far as settlement is concerned, leave aside a rural international the difficulty to be found in such areas. Bus services, that too not very frequent, would be found in these. Now, urban areas or for local transport, let me also tell you that they would have a local transport system. We have the PMPML in Pune. You would not have that in any rural areas. In fact, in many towns in Maharashtra, you'll see that the state transport runs the local bus system instead of having an exclusively separate local bus system as such. So these are a few differences of services that you would see between rural and urban areas as such. When you speak about type of settlements, you'll see that from isolated dwellings to hamlets, to villages, to small towns, to large towns, to cities, and then conurbations. Obviously, the number of isolated dwellings would be much larger, and that's why it's at the base of the pyramid. And conurbations would be smaller in number, but the population held or hosted by the conurbations is going to be significantly huge, let me tell you. Okay, this is how a city looks like. Okay, this is from Philippines again, you'll see. And then we move to something which is on the rise of late in different parts of the world, conurbation. A conurbation is an urban area or an agglomeration, okay, comprising of a number of cities, large towns, and larger urban areas that, through population growth and physical expansion as such, have merged to form one continuous urban and industrial development area. Normally, we'll see that conurbations are also seen as two places emerging individually as isolated towns and cities, and as they grow, they merge into each other. Such is a conurbation, and I think they are going to explain it in the next thing. A conurbation can be confused with a metropolitan area. As the term is used in Northern America, a metropolitan area consists of many neighborhoods, while a conurbation may consist of many different metropolitan areas that are connected to one another and are usually interdependent on economically and socially as such. I would say that we are into a process of building conurbations in Maharashtra, in the sense if you have heard of this term PMRDA, is basically it's not a spatial body, spatial SPATR, not SPE. It's not a spatial body in the sense it's not a geographic body. It's in plans, but then it comprises of Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad, Khadki cantonment, Devrod cantonment, and of course the Pune cantonment as well, all put together, the fringe areas. Because when we start planning for Pune, what happens is you will have people coming from neighborhood areas for day-to-day things. Now, what happens is because of this, people coming from other areas, this creates stress on resources in Pune, and as a consequence, similar services need to be made available to these people so that time is saved. And that's why the concept of smart city, that's why the concept of building metros, so that people can travel from one corner of the city to the other very fast. As such, PMRD is the Pune Metropolitan Regional Development Authority. It's an authority. Eventually, it will have a geographical face also. Okay. Uh, you have in Mumbai, you have the BMRDA, I suppose, the Bruhan Mumbai Regional Development Authority, and so on and so forth. They plan for a larger area because a larger section of, though administratively, the PMRDA would be spread into or divided into Pune and Pimpri Chinchwad and Alandi and places like Dehu Road and the cantonments, as I said, the Dehu cantonment and Khadki, etc. You need to plan for all of it together, and as a consequence, you have these development authorities as such also. Then, a conurbation could look like this. Okay, you'll see that the Puerto Madrillo on the Rio Plata River and of course Buenos Aires. Okay, these are two different cities. Buenos Aires is a different city, and Puerto Madre. It seems to be a Spanish way of spelling Spanish or Portugal. I'm not very sure. Probably it's Spanish. Port. Okay, and Buenos Aires, of course, is the capital of Argentina. Both of them have merged to come up with a huge conurbation as such. Uh, as far as various aspects of this locations, urban locations are concerned, site refers to the actual piece of ground on which the settlement is built. The site of a settlement is its exact location. Site factors which control site locations is water supply. Clean supply is very necessary for drinking, cooking, cleaning. Relief, the area needs to be high enough to be safe from flooding, but low enough to be sheltered from strong winds also. Defense, a hilltop or inside of a river meander would provide protection from attackers as such. Transport should be fast. Crossroads would give an easy access to other settlements. Soil should be fertile and of course easier to farm crops and rare animals. Such resources, particularly source of timber and rock which is needed for building, wood is needed for fuel, heating and cooking as such situation. Okay, then you have various types of settlement patterns. We've already spoken about it. These patterns, okay, when early settlements began, there were no planning regulations, but then eventually it was then that people used to build houses as they want. Some houses were built far apart from each other, it's called it dispersed. Some settlements became long and narrow, linear. Some stayed clustered, so that's nucleated as such. Today, people must have permission from local authorities to build their houses, otherwise, you face severe penalties as such. This is how settlement patterns would be. The dispersed one, it's single one here, nucleated, that they get around a particular thing, and then if you plan it in an aesthetic way, etc. This is dispersed settlements. This is an photograph of a dispersed settlement, as we have seen earlier also that most of the dispersed settlements would be around isolated hilltops, etc. As such. And then with linear settlements, this is how linear settlements would look. This is a highway. This could also be a railway line. You see that all these patterns can be easily seen if you're traveling by air. I don't know how many of you all do travel, but I know students who come from far-flung areas like Calcutta, North India, and they do travel. And in case otherwise also you travel through air for uh, uh, tourism purpose, you'll see that make it a point that at least for some time uh, after takeoff and before landing, just watch out of those small windows that these uh, aeroplanes have. They'll give you very interesting pictures as such, and you can keep that in mind also. As this is a nucleated settlement, of course. This you'll see that in the center here you have, I think you have a palace or you could have a cathedral here, and the majority of the houses, and you'll see that there is no pattern of these houses around us. Nucleated house, the patterns settlements tend to be like this. This is Alston in Paris. This is another nucleated on a very different scale. You'll see that the clustering, and you can easily again say that this is some part in North India because the tops tend to seem to be so very flat as such. Okay, if not North India, for sure this is an area which has low rainfall as such. Okay, and that's why the tops are flat as such. Land settlements, you'll see that the capital city of Brasilia is a planned city as such. Uh, I think this place. Anyway, I'm forgetting the place name. And then you'll see that you go to uh, this 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 place Brasilia. You see that they have planned it in a shape of an aeroplane. You can see an aeroplane. These are the fins of the aeroplane. This is the head of it, and then the tail of it as such. So that is how they're planning Brazil, the capital of Brasilia as such. Okay, in India, Chandigarh is a planned city as such, and you can see this beautiful look of Chandigarh. You will not see very tall skyscrapers as such, but it expands over a huge area, and as a consequence, it looks very fantastic as such. What are the functions of the settlement? Okay, uh, settlement functions in the sense, the function of most of the early settlements was farming. Okay, in fact, man settled down because he was sure that he was not going to farm as such. So settlements slowly grew, and as they grew, their functions also grew. Present settlements would have multiple types of functions as such. You would have something like this is a town in Manila, which is exclusively built for settlement purposes as such. You have such locations in Spain. You have such locations in China. The other day I was speaking about the fact that Florida is in fact a state, and the coastal part, Miami in Florida, is basically a place wherein the billionaires and the millionaires of the United States of America and even other parts of the world, I tell you, they buy land which is stinkingly rich people. They buy land which is very highly priced, and so they build huge mansions. And if you go along these major roads of Miami, you could say that okay, this is the house of Pete Sampras. This is the house of John McEnroe. This is the house of the so and so president of numbered president of America. This is a mansion which is built by the Prince of Abu Dhabi and so on and so forth. So, residential function. Chandigarh basically was built with that aspect also. Then you would have something like an administrative function. As such, you'll see that I think I have a photograph of, yes, New Delhi. You'll see that you have a gap between New Delhi and Old Delhi. Not seen much this year, but New Delhi is exclusively known for construction of this whole complex of the Parliament, which you can see in the front. And the two domes are the North Block and the South Block, wherein all the bureaucrats, very senior bureaucrats, have their offices, ministries, and so on and so forth. You have an specific industrial functions as such. Uh, because majority of these slides are from the presentation I borrowed, you'll see that examples have been from Philippines, but you can also list industrial functions in India also. One exclusive one is, and something which you would be knowing, is Sivkasi. This is an industrial town known for fireworks. Then you have similarly in Tamil Nadu, you have a place called as Tirupur. Tirupur is known for its hosiery, and you'll see that T-shirts, etc. Hosiery T-shirts are exported all the world, all around the world from Tirupur as such. Go to Kanpur, it's known for its leather industry, tannery as such, and so on and so on. So even in India, you have industrial functioning towns as such. Then you have commercial towns as such. You have a lot of shopping centers, recreation facilities. These are available in larger towns of India. So you'll see that many Indian towns develop in many multiple functions because of the population. It's this population that provides with the business, and that's why they develop like many things. Say, for example, cinemas, sports centers, malls, parks, available as recreational facilities. So there is no exclusivity about it, but Chandigarh once upon a time was known for being having a lot of parks all around because it was planned as such, and every park had its own thing. Then you have service functions, public services like schools, hospitals, home, old age homes and orphans. And of course, once again in India do not have these services exclusive, but then you have them dispersed as such. The other day we were speaking about Kota in Rajasthan. Okay, that's an exclusive academic function in town as such. Otherwise, you'll see that all larger towns also are known for academic purposes. Pune, Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai, Bengaluru, Hyderabad. Tourism, again, as I said, that many cities, and as the scope of tourism is multiplying, you'll see that except for places like you can see toward the left beach tourism, etc. Otherwise you'll see that cities develop as many types of tourisms as such. That's all as far as urban settlements are concerned. I would like to announce here that there is one more chapter now left, and as far as that chapter is concerned, I am going and medical correction very soon. So I would like to finish it at the earliest. Let me know when we could have an extra lecture. I'll try to finish it off in that lecture as well. We'll discuss about it on the WhatsApp group as well. But as I said, that's the only thing remaining of our syllabus. So in a couple of days to come, say tomorrow also should be fine for me, and Monday also probably should be fine for me.